So here we go. Welcome to our September 2022 refresher class. As I think you all know, we do this monthly. And so feel free to tell others about it if they want to join. I'll send them the invite. And this is a chance for us to kind of replenish and reinvigorate our mindfulness practices or learn some new ones. I always try to inject some new practices, and we usually try to do 2 meditations and usually a quick pause at the beginning, which we'll do in just a moment. And so let's do that. Let's move on right to the next. I have this image of the Mona Lisa here. And so I use this as a way to kind of remember self-kindness, okay? So what I'd like you to do is just sit comfortably. You can take a moment to smile to yourself. This will just be a really quick pause to get it started. Smile to yourself. That can kind of mean just sort of inwardly feeling a smile, even if it's just a small half smile, even if you have to fake it. But you might bring to mind something that makes you smile. I don't know, a puppy or a grandchild or a young child or a beautiful sunset or whatever it might be, something that might make you smile. And just feel that smile now spreading from your mouth up towards your eyes and your face, and then spreading down through the rest of your body, kind of a quick body scan, smiling body scan, okay? Letting that smile sort of flow down through your body, bringing kind of a lighthearted friendliness to parts of your body, down through your shoulders and arms and torso, down into the belly and the pelvic area, the legs, all the way down to your feet. And then just pausing here and feeling the whole body the way it is now, with a sense of a smile and being lighthearted and remembering to be kind to yourself. And that's a quick pause. And so we'll finish that. And so that's just another simple little practice that you can do anytime. And just as a way to kind of bring ourselves into the present moment. So how are you doing? Kind of want to know how's it going with your practice, and people can feel free to share either by chat or through the, feel free to unmute yourself if you're muted. If you'd like to share a little bit of how it's going with your formal and informal practice. That could be, sitting meditation or mindful practices on the go. So anybody have anything they would like to share in terms of challenges or successes, or when you're doing it or how you're doing it, or things that you've tried and brought it to other areas of your life? Anyone?
I just noticed it's like 13 months for me. And I just noticed it sort of unconsciously just pours over into the rest of my life, the mindfulness, like even when I'm not trying, it's just there now all the time.
There you go.
Whether you want it or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's becoming second nature then. I mean, you've trained your mind and your body so that you're beginning to it's naturally surfacing, right?
Yeah, it's just there. And at first, when I first noticed it, I'm like, oh, and is that normal? And then I guess I just kind of figured out, well, yeah, because it just happened organically, so it can't be wrong, right?
Well, I mean, and that's part of the message. There's really nothing right or wrong with this practice. That's what, remember, we're not striving to be perfect at it, but with practice, we do get better at it in a sense. And I think that's what you're illustrating. And I found that, I can remember that too, where it just, and I still feel it at times. And there, it still ebbs and flows in a way. But yeah, it just becomes more close to the surface. You're more aware, you realize you're more aware. And it is really a nice thing, because I mean, that's really the essence of why we practice in a formal practice, but also in the informal practice, so that it becomes second nature, so that it becomes how we live our life. So it's great to hear. Thank you, Faye. Anyone else? Any other observations about your practice, how it's going, or anything at all that you'd like to share? Okay, it's a comment from Josh. Good, thanks. Fell off the mindfulness meditation wagon. Need to be intentional and restarting. So glad you're here. And that's common. I think it happens to all of us. So we fall off the wagon and life gets in the way. We get pulled into so many different directions, and or different routines happen. I notice, like when, got some vacation or something, or do something different in your life, that kind of pulls you off track. So start fresh again. That's great. You're here today. You can start fresh any moment. And so that's really the key reminder, starting again, just like we do in the breathing focus practices. So another person agrees with that. Yeah. So yeah. So, and again, it's not like, if you're not doing it enough, I'm not going to like be saying, okay, you don't get a good grade. I'm glad you're here, because you're here and you're here to learn, and you're here to practice, and you're here to restart, and that's perfect. So those are two good lessons so far. Anybody else before we move on? All right. Here we go. So in the vein of how are we doing, life is kind of tough these days, right? So I put in this quote: we are not troubled by things, but by the opinions we have about things. And, we can easily react to all the stuff that's going on in the world around us. There are so many different stressors and triggers and difficulties, right? But this whole practice helps us change our relationship to all that. It helps us respond in ways that are not reactive, that are not just simply being triggered. And so, awareness of thinking and anchored breathing, deeply embodied breathing, that's going to be our first practice. That's kind of like a way to settle ourselves. And so I bring up this next slide, and kind of, how are you feeling emotionally? How things going for you in the last few days, or today, or just kind of checking in with yourself. You don't have to share this yourself, but just tuning into your mood and how you're feeling. So maybe giving it a label, being aware of that too. I mean, that's kind of an important thing. We will do something in the second meditation on, kind of thought patterns, and thoughts are often directly linked to our feelings. So being aware of our feelings is a good place to simply acknowledge them and not stuff them or push them away, but acknowledge them when they're here. And this next practice, which I've shared before and talked about, the practice of rain, is one way to do that. When we're feeling a bit of an emotional upset or tangle, or something that kind of like, gets us thinking and worrying about things, the first two steps are really all you have to do, is just recognize what's happening. recognize the emotion or the thought pattern, label it, be aware of it, and kind of asking yourself the question. The A is allowing it to be there, sort of asking yourself, can I be with this? Even though it may be uncomfortable, even though it may show up in the body and create pain or discomfort or unease, dis-ease, I guess you could say. Can I be with this? Kind of in a sense, leaning into it a little bit without pushing it away. Now, I'm not saying, if it's super uncomfortable, if it's something traumatic, I don't mean that. That's a little different. That we can use some outside help with. But if it's something that we can begin to be with and see how it shows up in the body, then we begin. The I part of the RAIN is to investigate their inner experience with kindness. So that's important, not to be critical with ourselves. And then the N is really the result of that practice, is not identifying with what's going on, with the stressor or the problem or the worry. That it's sometimes we feel like it's all part of us, but we can step back from that and have a separate identity from that which is stressing us out, which is nurturing. And that's the other way to think of the N. It's a nurturing process. So RAIN is a good one to keep in your back pocket, in a sense, and keep doing as this could be done as a formal or informal practice. So kind of remember that. It can be very useful. Now, let's turn to breathing. And the first practice is based on Vidyamala Burch. She's a mindfulness teacher from Great Britain and has a great information on her website. She's also present on certain apps. I've seen her on Insight Timer and other places. And she actually works with pain. And so, if that's, if you're struggling with some pain in your life, in your body in particular, some of her work applies to that directly. But today's is really just about breathing in a you'll see what I mean by 360-degree breathing in a moment. But she calls it breathing as a multi-dimensional embodied experience. Okay. If we can learn to rest deeply in our breathing, we can bring on the parasympathetic wing of our nervous system. That's the part of our nervous system it's the relaxation response. It's the part that brings on calm and ease, the opposite of being, when the adrenaline kicks in and we feel agitated. This is the opposite of that. And it can be restorative and healing. So let's do the practice. That's just a little intro into that. So with this image up here, we'll do the 360-degree breathing. So I'll invite you to take a moment to settle as you sit. Invite yourself to rest inside your breathing, inside your body. As you sit here, finding a comfortable position, take a moment to really be comfortable, but also be somewhat upright so you can be alert and attentive as well. And if there's any discomfort as we go through this in your body or in your position, feel free to move, that's fine. And you can close your eyes, or you can keep them softly open down in front of you. And start by taking a deep breath in. And on the out breath, allowing the weight of your body to settle down into gravity. Do this a couple more times. Deep breath in. Breathing out, allowing the weight to settle down into gravity. One more time. allowing the body to rest down into the points of contact beneath you. And then allowing the breath to find its own natural rhythm. Allowing the out-breath and the in-breath to flow very easily and naturally. Now let's gather our awareness to rest inside the belly area, inside the abdomen, the soft area between the pelvis at the bottom and the ribs at the top. Seeing if you can allow the belly to swell a little on the in-breath and subside on the out-breath. If it helps to put your hand on your belly, you can do that, feel that. So resting inside this rhythm for a few moments, allowing the belly to swell on the in-breath and subside on the out-breath. And now moving our awareness to the chest area, allowing the ribs to expand on the in-breath and subside on the out-breath. The lungs filling and emptying, the breastbone rising and falling with each breath cycle. And now moving awareness to rest inside the back of the body, the whole back of the torso. Being curious, how is breathing showing up in your back right now? Noticing how the ribs and the lungs are as much in the back of the body as in the front. Can you get a sense of that as you rest awareness in this area? Breathing, expressing itself in your upper back. And what about your lower back? Maybe you can feel the shape of your lower back changing a little bit with each in-breath and out-breath. Maybe there's a broadening on the in-breath and a subsiding on the out-breath. Maybe you can't feel much at all, and that's all right. Just be aware of the possibility of there being movement of sensations in the lower back as you breathe. Now broadening awareness to include the whole torso, the front, the back, the sides, and the surface. Can you feel the volume expanding a little bit in all directions on the in-breath and subsiding a bit on the out-breath? (360-degree) breathing. Always being careful not to force or strain, just that we're allowing the body to breathe on its own, expanding, subsiding. And now having a sense of this rhythm, this movement spilling down into your legs. Maybe you can even feel some very faint echo of breathing down into the legs. And of course, don't worry if you can't. Just allow the awareness to inhabit the legs, the ankles, the feet, the toes. And then allowing your awareness to flow back up again to the torso for a few moments, resting inside the swelling and subsiding in all directions. And now allowing the awareness to move into the shoulders and to pour down into the arms, down to the wrists and hands and fingers and thumbs. Allowing the arms to rest in gravity. And perhaps again, feeling a very faint echo of breathing in the arms and hands. And as we sit here, we're not doing any gross movements, but we tune into all these very subtle movement of respiration, of breathing, and being aware of the flow of sensations of the whole body. Letting the whole body be a little softer, a little more fluid than usual. And now allowing our awareness to pour back up into the shoulders and up into the head and the face. Letting the face be soft, softening around the mouth and the base of the tongue, releasing the jaw, so that the in-breath and out-breath can move freely into this area. And then broadening our awareness to include the whole body. The legs, the torso, the arms, the neck, and the head. Checking that all these areas are as soft as possible. And see if you can get a sense of the whole body expanding a bit on the in-breath and subsiding on the out-breath. Again, 360-degree breathing. A subtle rhythm and flow of the whole body. And giving the weight of the whole body up to gravity and resting in each present moment inside breathing. And as we begin to bring this practice to a close, perhaps forming an intention to drop back into this deeply embodied breath awareness as we move through the day. And whenever you remember or notice, allow your body to be a little more pliable, to be rocked and massaged by your breathing. And in your own time, when you're ready, gently coming out of the practice, opening your eyes, and re-engaging with your day. All right, so that was 360-degree breathing. Hope you found that enjoyable or helpful, or however you found it is all right. Remember, we're not trying to get any special place when we do this, but so if anybody wants to comment, I'm going to move on because I want to make sure we get through this. But if you would like to comment on what that was like, feel free to do that in the chat. What your experience of that was like. So I'm going to throw out some of these terms here on this next slide. Alert and relaxed, and instead of being not alert and stressed. Fitness for the brain, being, not doing, being engaged in the moment, thinking clearly, in a state of flow, stepping out of autopilot, returning to focus. So I put these up here because I want you to think about what's your intention when you practice. Now, lots of times we think, okay, I just need to relax. I just need to chill or whatever it is. And that's fine, but you know, it can be so much more than that. And these kind of exemplify all those different things. So we kind of bring up the idea of what's your intention? Why meditate at all? Great, thank you for putting in those chats into your experience into the chat. Appreciate that. Feel free to continue doing that if you would like to. So, we know, as I said, meditation can be relaxing, but it's really about being alert in the present moment. Um, so here's a bunch of other things that we can set our intention on. So just kind of looking through this, and as we go down the list, maybe it's we need to focus or refresh ourselves or step back from stress, not be triggered like we talked about in the rain exercise, not be automatically hijacked by it. We can step back from it. And then there's gaining insight. And that's actually where the rest of the last practice is going to go, because we're going to look at thought patterns. So that helps us to gain insight into what's going on with our thinking, as I said, which is often and usually linked with our emotional state. But a couple of other intentions are knowing it's good for you, and you should. Sometimes that's a good motivator. We just know we should do it. We should do it on a regular basis, and that's where we're going to get the benefit out of it. And then also, I like this term of finding a balance of being relaxed and attentive, right? So that we can learn to, even in the moment, even when there's a lot going on, like there's a hurricane around us, we can still be relaxed and attentive. We can find that eye of the hurricane. So those are some things to think about when you sit down, or whatever form of meditation you're doing. What's maybe coming up with a simple intention before you get started. I want to relax, or I want to focus, or I want to step back from stress, or I want to figure out what's going on in my thought process. Whatever it is, that can be helpful. So you might try that. Now, this here are just some informal practices that you might try using the 5 senses. And so it can be self-soothing. And we use these with a beginner's mind. So remember, a beginner's mind is when we do something, we experience it as if for the first time, as if we're a little child, or as if we're an alien coming across something for the very first time, trying to bring that attitude toward whatever it is. And these are just some suggestions. So with a vision, looking through a photo album or photos on your phone, and slowing down, taking some time with it, using that beginner's mind. Also using it with nature. It's a great place to use your beginner's mind, either getting out into nature, or even just a photo or film, or I actually have a bunch of short videos on the YouTube website where I post all these. So if you ever have time and you want to look at one of the playlists on there, I have a whole playlist of nature scenes, and they're only about anywhere from a minute to 3 minutes. And they're just simple little videos I took with my iPhone, but they're a great way to just, really immerse yourself into the scene and take a breather. Then, of course, hearing can include listening to music or other sounds, peaceful sounds from nature, or recordings, or, really even other sounds. Sometimes, I have sounds in the background here. There's somebody working on the house next door. So there's power tools going off, and there's somebody blowing leaves or lawn mowing. Those can be kind of annoying. So you can even notice how you respond to that, what sort of opinion you have of that, and the comments that come up with some of the less than peaceful sounds. Same thing with taste, so savoring foods, your favorite foods, but even noticing tastes that aren't as pleasant, or trying a new taste or a new fruit or a new treat. And again, approaching it with that attitude of doing it for the very first time, and really taking your time with it and savoring it, slowing down. And then finally, touch. Feeling water in the bath or shower or swimming, but just really, what does that water feel like? it could also be rain. We tend to want to get out of bad weather, but I've been in recently a couple of situations where I was on my bike and it started to rain. And at first it's like, you say to yourself, oh no, I don't want to get wet. But as you proceed and if you have to get somewhere, you have to get wet. And it's really not that bad, once you kind of get used to it, especially if it's not that cold. I mean, if it's warm weather like it is now, you can really begin to, well, perhaps maybe not enjoy it, but feel it. Just get a sense of what it's like. And so another one, that last one there, observing texture of sand or feel of warm breeze on your skin. There's so many different ways that we can observe your sense of touch. So these are just all different ways of training yourself to find a peaceful moment using your senses, even though life around us is kind of chaotic and hectic. So that's kind of another way to do that, right? All right, so I'm going to pause here and then we're going to go into our last practice. Any questions or comments before I move on? All right, so I put this image up. You may have seen it before because, thoughts are just something that happen all the time. I mean, they, in our brain and our mind, secrete thoughts the way other glands secrete hormones, or our eyes see, our nose smell, all those things we just talked about, and our mind thinks that's just what it does. So one way to think about this, the ability to distinguish between thinking and awareness, to use a classic metaphor from consciousness studies, awareness is like the empty stage. And thinking is one of the actors that trots out onto the stage, along with seeing, hearing, tasting, and touching. When we're mindful, we watch thinking play out from the vantage of awareness. As we do, we begin to notice actually that thinking is substantive. It's made up of fleeting images and tumbling inner talk. Fortunately, we can learn to zoom out of the camera of our awareness and notice when this is happening, and that we don't have to get caught up in it. That's kind of the basic idea. Or another way to think about it is a classic progression in meditation is first we work up on building concentration by paying attention to the breath. And that's really what we did in the first exercise, the 360-degree breathing. Then once our attention is more stable, we get curious about the distractions themselves, which are loaded with information about our go-to thought patterns, our preoccupations, our triggers. And it turns out that these patterns are getting activated all the time, even when we're sitting in meditation. So the more practice we have in noticing, the less likely we're going to get sucked into them or hijacked by them. So that's kind of the idea with this next meditation. So again, adopt a position that's comfortable, relatively upright, balanced, relaxed, at ease, but also alert. Again, closing the eyes, or if you want to keep them slightly open, with a soft gaze down in front of you. Either way is fine. Sensing into the body, feeling the body sitting here. Let your body sink into what's supporting you. Give yourself up to gravity. Let gravity do its job. And then noticing the breath, starting, here, the breath is a starting point, kind of our home base. And it's a place to come back to anytime we wish. So feeling that flow of the breath in and out of the body. And if you'd like, feeling a specific place where you feel the breath, you can do that, or just the general sense of the movement of breath, the rising and falling, or that expanding and subsiding of your breathing. That's your home base, your anchor. Now, you can choose a different anchor in your body if you like, the sense of your body sitting, that sense of contact in the chair, your feet on the floor, or your hands, for example. Any one of those can serve as an anchor as well. So stay with the breath in a relaxed and easygoing manner. Just that's the simple concentration meditation. Just breathing, just knowing when you're breathing in, knowing when you're breathing out. And at some point, in a very secret way, some pattern rises up and you get sucked in or hijacked, taken over by the pattern. It could be anything. It could be boredom. Really, this is meditation. I could be doing something more productive right now. If that happens, just note to yourself boredom and come back to the anchor of the breath or the body. Or maybe the pattern is confusion. You're not sure what's going on, not sure whether you're inside a pattern or not. So label it confusion and come back to the breath. The idea is to stay curious, to watch the mind as it creates new patterns. And each moment of being hijacked is a new learning opportunity. Staying with the breath, but also noticing where the mind goes when it's checking out. Where is it checking out to? It may be that most of what's pulling you away are simple, physical, and external things. For example, I just heard a sound in the background, something dropping. That caught my attention. Or a feeling of indigestion or itching or, pain. The general rule is if it's strong enough to pull you away from the breath, then note it and explore it a bit with curiosity. What is this thing? And what is your attitude toward it? Following this strange pattern like an investigator of consciousness. And if the pattern plays itself out or gets too strong, then go back to your home base. So we're noticing patterns where curiosity is king, exploring the subtle ways we get pulled away from our commitments, from our focus. And in a sense, we're busting patterns of feeling and thinking and acting that sneak up on us and hijack us in all different ways. So as we are aware of these patterns, we try to catch them in the act. And the genius of meditation is that it gives us the option of going along with our patterns or not. So see what secret patterns you can bust as you go about your day. And again, when you're ready, we'll finish the meditation and you can open your eyes and reconnect with your surroundings. And we'll finish that one. So that was investigating patterns and really kind of looking at the thoughts that go by. And Again, I'd like to know if you have any reactions to that or a little bit of what your experience was. So feel free to put in the chat what that was like. But this slide kind of says it. Once we clearly see what's going in the moment, we can choose how to act on what we're seeing. And so that's kind of, in a sense, the essence of why we, well, not why, but the essence of our mindfulness practice. You know, on autopilot, we're really not in the present moment, right? We're being caught up and we're being tossed about by things we're reacting to, or we think about the past, or we worry about the future. This whole practice is about seeing clearly in the moment, and then we have the ability to choose on how to act and what we're seeing. We have just that simple moment to choose to respond. All right, good. So I want to just remind you about our phone meditations. We're still doing these 5 days a week. These are live Take 10 meditations, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2. We've got that main access number and code. Real easy. Feel free to do that. We also have meditations. See this blue box here. The 688 number has 3 recorded meditations, and we also have like 30 guided meditations on our Chief Solutions site if you haven't seen that. So check that out if you haven't been there yet. There's lots of different types and styles, and so that's another place for you to get different ways to practice. So the last thing I'll just leave with you is, what's your commitment? It does help. A couple of you mentioned falling off the wagon. So as I said, that happens to most of us, all of us really. So what's your commitment? What are you going to try? You're going to try to do this daily, or what? You're going to try to do this maybe in the morning, or is there a break in the day, or when you're out for a walk with the dog, or whatever it is? What's the commitment that you're going to try to continue this? What's your intention? You can use that way to think about it as well. And then finally, I'll put this up as we close out, a reminder about our program, our employee and family resources. We have lots of good services for you and your family members. So keep that in mind too. And I will send these slides out along with the link to the recording. And thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate you being here with me today. And hope you have a great rest of your day. And thanks for being there. Really, really appreciate it.